With not only Chloe but also Veldora joining the battle, there was a risk that the control over her could be undone due to some unexpected event. Therefore, Feldway had to continuously reinforce his control, and had no time to deal with Zalario and the others. That's why he dared to face them with such a composed attitude, and try to make Zalario and the others despair. And yet, Zalario remained unfazed. Tisk, how annoying. That straightforward personality was admirable, but now that they're my enemy, it's a real nuisance. The colleague who had been persistently fighting against the insector was a reliable ally when on the same side. However, now, their unwavering determination to not give up on victory was interfering with Feldway's plans. While Feldway admired Zalario's skill, he also realized that this was no time to let his guard down. Though they were inferior in strength, Leon and Omija were not opponents to be taken lightly. Even if one or two of their attacks landed, the damage would be insignificant, but the disruption to his concentration could prove problematic. At the very least, until Youm destroyed the Divine Tree. If only I could destroy the Divine Tree with my own power, I wouldn't have needed to go through all this trouble. The Divine Tree is a crucial stronghold that serves as the cornerstone of this foundational world. Its defenses are impenetrable, making it impossible to destroy with half-baked power. Even for Feldway, who possesses immense strength, completely destroying the Divine Tree was an unattainable feat. While it was possible to annihilate the elven nation of Sarian, the only force capable of obliterating the Divine Tree itself was Youm's Dragon Nova. And if the Divine Tree could not be destroyed, then the Celestial Tower in the Holy Void of Damergania could not be brought down either. Seeing the Heavenly Star Palace endure Youm's Dragon Nova, Feldway came to that realization. That said, as long as the Divine Tree was felled, the destruction of the Heavenly Star Palace would no longer be an issue. The world would naturally collapse, and soon enough, the world-destroying dragon, Ivarage set to descend imminently, would wipe everything away, including all insignificant existences. For that reason, he couldn't afford to fail to control Youm here. Feldway secretly put his heart and soul into it, thinking that this was the moment of truth. Thus, the second offensive and defensive battle over the sacred tree grew overheated. Chloe and Veldora's duo were trying to stop Youm. An impromptu team with Zalario at the top, trying to eliminate Feldway. The whereabouts of that battle were still difficult to predict. In the old Urzania, the battle between Guy and Velgrynd was growing more intense. At the Divine Tree's knees, the heroes were fighting for the fate of the world to stop Feldway's ambitions. At the same time, heroes had gathered on the frontier of Rubelios, the holy cloistered kingdom bordering the dying desert. With the help of Velgrynd, they had gathered from all over the world one after another. There were about 500 heroes gathered from each country. From the armed nation of Dworgen, there were 500 Pegasus Knights, led by the hero King Gazel. From the Eastern Empire, the newly formed Imperial Guardian, the Emperor's elite knight order, has sent 100 knights. Calgurio has been appointed as Marshal, with Minute supporting him as his adjutant. Meanwhile, the forces of Ruberios and the Giants, who had been clashing in this land until just yesterday, have now reconciled and joined forces as comrades in battle. From Ruberios, Crusaders, the Holy Knight Order led by Hinata, have deployed 300 knights. Additionally, the temporarily reinstated former members of the three marshals Saint Sar and Gregory have joined Hinata's command, along with 30 knights from the Rook Geniuses, an elite unit directly under the Pope's authority. Pope Louis himself leads the Bloody Knights, numbering just under 400. On the Giant faction's side, Dagura has taken supreme command in place of Daggerul, who has entered slumber. Basara, known as Four Arms, formerly the foremost of the 5 great war generals, serves as Regent King Dagura's aide, leading over 1,000 elite warriors of the Fettered Titan Corps. In addition, a small but elite force of 100 members from the Three Wise Drunks, Musketeer Squad, had rushed to the scene as quickly as possible. There were just under 3,000 of them in total. This was the full extent of the Anti-Demon Realm Dragon-Ivarage alliance at this point. It hadn't even been a full day since Luminous's apocalyptic declaration. It seems long, but it's actually a very short time. Having such a large force gathered at such a speed was a feat worthy of past common sense. However, the real performance hasn't even begun yet. The fate of humanity will be decided by the battle to come. 500 heroes from all over the world had gathered in one place as a single group. Everyone is an air anchor hire expert, but in this situation, it's not something to brag about. Unless one stands out significantly, they were judged as not being counted as effective combat forces in this disorganized state. This brings up the issue of who will lead. While everyone likely thinks that Masayuki should take on that role, in reality, it's a poor decision. Masayuki is good at boosting luck, but in a group that can't even coordinate, allowing individuals to do as they please would have minimal effect. Since they're all well-known figures in the guilds of various nations, they have little experience working under someone. Similarly, Masayuki wasn't suited to lead others. They needed someone to put these heroes together. Anxiety oozed from everyone's faces, and they looked nervous. In the midst of all that, there was someone who was actually speaking casually and in a seagoing tone. Youm, who was elevated as a hero and eventually crowned as the king of a great nation, was now gathering his former comrades to join the battle as king for Luminous. Look at that, quite the impressive sight. Well, I'm called a hero too, but compared to the real hero, King Gazelle, I'm nothing special. I'm worried I won't be much help. Shrugging his shoulders, he spoke to the wolf beastman, Grucius, who stood beside him. In response, Grucius laughed off Youm's worries. Ha! Don't make me laugh. Whether it's fake or real, just standing here makes you a hero. If we lose, the world's done for, so hiding out in fear is pointless. Whether it's a meaningless death or a dog's death, we have no choice but to face it head on. Exactly, Youm nodded. From the start, they weren't conceited enough to be of any help. They just wanted to help, even if only a little. The still young daughter, Meme, is staying at home. Even the retired King Edmurus has now become a consultant under the name Marius. His son, Edgar, is also reliable, so he believed that the succession issue would somehow be resolved, and that they would take care of it. If they could survive, that was the best course of action. Even if that doesn't happen, if they win this battle, they can leave the rest to the ones who left them. That was why Youm was standing here, accompanied by his wife, Queen Jur, and his best friend, the Knight Commander, Grucius. Normally, I would boast that I would buy some time to escape, but there is no escape, so there's no point in trying to act cruel. I have no choice but to move forward. Raisin grumbled in an elderly tone despite his young appearance. Ha, you're not wrong. And Youm responded with a big laugh. Tisk, it was my turn to be happy with Mjurn after you. Don't worry. I didn't promise anything like that. Here, the two idiots glared at each other over Queen Jur. Their demeanor was the same as always, and it helped ease the tension of those watching the exchange. The heroes thought. I can trust this man, they thought. They were convinced that Youm, who also had a friendship with the demon lord Rimuru, could entrust their lives to them. Yo, Youm. I'm not part of any nation, so even if you're the king, please drop the formalities. I don't mind. I used to be a delinquent myself. Ha, now you're speaking my language. Ha, yeah. Same here, I'm good with that. Alright. By the way, you're also in charge of leading us. Leave it to me, wait, ha. Those who were charmed by Youm's personality kept approaching him one by one, and before long, they had pushed him into the role of the leader. This inability to refuse was what made Youm, well, Youm. Okay. Are you sure I'm the right person for this? It's fine, right? We trust you. You're the only one who can do it. I've mostly been doing solo work, so use me however you want, like in a vanguard or something. And so on, no one complained about Youm becoming the leader. This made Youm's companions burst into laughter. He looks the part of a leader. Looks like we'll have more heroic tales to tell. I'll have to write them down. Even if he fails, no one's going to blame him. We'll all be in it together anyway. And so, with everyone pushing him forward, it was decided that Youm would lead the group as the general. To take on such a heavy role without thinking it through, you're still as foolish as ever, Mjurn sighed in disbelief. But at the same time, as she watched the man she loved live such a turbulent life, she gently blushed, her white cheeks turning slightly pink. On the other hand, Luminous, the one who'd started it this time, didn't have the luxury of heartwarming. They were huddling their foreheads together with Velgrynd and Hinata for a detailed meeting. We'll aim for where they're trying to leave Heaven Tower. That's the least damage we can do. Right. We've gathered just under 3,000, but it's the best force we could hope for. It seems like we might get a few more, but perhaps it's about time we start thinking about our deployment. Velgrynd nodded at Luminous's words. Then, while pointing at the blueprint spread out on the table, she began explaining the structure of Heaven Tower. The Heaven Tower is a circular tower centered around a spiral staircase in the middle. There are residential areas on the outer walls, but you can ignore those. The real issue lies beyond the doors. The blueprint is a 3-view drawing. When viewed from above, it is a perfect circle, and from the front, it maintains almost the same width as it stretches into the sky. The same is true when viewed from the sides, showing no eccentric or unconventional design. The entrance and exit are located on the part bordering the ground. It was a series of arched openings, designed to allow anyone to come and go freely. The tower's diameter was about 500 meters. The size of each entrance, as can be inferred from the fact that giants can easily pass through them, was quite massive. The point is that it's impossible to concentrate our forces in one place. The Heaven Tower cannot be destroyed. In other words, it is extremely difficult to block its entrances. One could use earth magic to seal them from the outside, but if they were broken, it would be pointless. To begin with, there are over 300 entrances. Blocking all of them and guiding the enemy as planned would be difficult, even from a time perspective. What if we seal the doors inside? Hinata asked, but Velgrynd also dismissed this idea. You seem to be misunderstanding because I said doors. The image you have in mind is incorrect. As she said this, Velgrynd transmitted an image of the interior information to Hinata through telepathy. The spiral staircase inside the Heaven Tower was wide horizontally, and the doors in the middle section were also enormous. The central axis was over 300 meters wide, so the staircase was equally large. The steps were also too big for humans. I see. This is more like a giant gate. Even if we wait inside, if they rush in all at once, there's nothing we can do. Basically, attacking from above is more powerful. Waiting on the precarious staircase would be disadvantageous for the defenders. Hinata also understood this and withdrew her suggestion. We should position our troops around the four sides of the Heaven Tower, with the strongest fighters at the front to meet the enemy's main force. That's the only way, Luminous concluded. With a circular tower where entrances and exits are possible from any point around its circumference, the only option is to deploy the army in a surrounding formation. Moreover, it would be ideal to evenly distribute the forces, so that they can respond equally from any direction. It's tough, but we have no choice but to do it. Indeed, you're right. We'll have the rear forces pick off the enemies who escaped the encirclement or were missed. Does that sound good? Hinata, Luminous, and Velgrynd were in agreement. Then, let's gather the leaders and assign roles. The plan was set, but there were still mountains of problems to address. If the cryptids were to emerge in droves from the opening, they could be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. To prevent that, they had to deploy their forces wisely. That said, everyone gathered here had their own will. Even if it was a global crisis, it was uncertain whether they would obediently follow. Well, it seems it's my role to convince them. Hinata steeled her resolve. There was no time for infighting among allies. The fate of the world would be decided by the upcoming discussions. Hinata tightened her focus.